Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. Have you ever seen a mythological nature spirit, cryptid, or entity, or other spooky occurrence in the woods or outdoors? What's your experience? Please remember to like, share, comment, hype, listen and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. One morning, my girlfriend and I were lying in her bed on a cold morning. We didn't have work or school that day because it had snowed. She lived out in the middle of nowhere, like no neighbor for a mile anywhere. Well, I hear someone right outside the window say, "Get down! They're going to be able to see you if you don't get down." So of course, this startled me, and I turned around and saw a guy and 3 dogs right outside, walking toward the garage door. So I grabbed my handgun and go to meet them at the door and find out why they were there. So in those 10 seconds, I got outside and no one was there. Right outside our window, there were shoe prints and paw prints in fresh snow. I tracked them down the back of the property, and after about 100 yards or so, there were only paw prints. I looked over to my left 10 to 15 yards. There were very similar paw prints that looked like they had come from the forest toward the house. So I tracked those up to the house, and then shoe prints appeared about 25 yards from the house. So I followed them to see if maybe they had gone out the front of the property, but there were none. To this day, I'm not really sure what happened or what was outside our window. When I was a teenager, I had something weird happen to me. It started when a friend was looking at me strangely and blurted that there was a woman following me. I looked all around and he was like, "No, she's here, but she's not here." I asked him to explain, but then he was laughing it off, saying he must have just been crazy. Soon after, things started moving in my room on their own. The little metal ornamental piece on my daybed would randomly launch into the air, and scrunchies would be thrown at my head. It was the 90s, don't judge. Nothing that ever hurt. It was just annoying. It happened so often that I would bitch at it when it was messing with me. It also did this to 2 of my friends. One of my friends didn't like it though. She was more of a friend-enemy anyway. But I'll get to that in a minute. One night, I was in bed with the lights off, ready to sleep. My bedroom door was closed and I could hear the TV that my aunt was watching in the living room. I felt someone sit down on the end of my bed and heard a woman's voice say my name. I sat up all happy, thinking that my mom got off early from work and snuck into my room to say goodnight. It wasn't my mom. I remember being scared shitless, but I don't remember anything else. My next memory is waking up that next morning. A few days later, one of my good friends and my other friend were at my house after school. We were watching TV in the living room, then decided to go to my mom to hang out. My friend said she was thirsty and went to the kitchen to get some juice, while my other friend and I went to my room. A minute later, we heard my friend scream from the kitchen. We ran in there to find her cowering on the floor, crying with 3 scratch marks on her cheek. One of the scratches even broke the skin, and there was a tiny bit of blood. My other friend was asking her what happened, but she just stayed on the floor all freaked out. But I knew. I don't know what came over me, but I lost my I started yelling at my invisible house guest. I don't remember everything I said, but it boiled down to, "This is my house, and you're not welcome here." My friends were on the floor looking up at me, yelling at nothing, and what's really weird is they didn't look at me like I was crazy. They were scared. Later, they told me that they saw some sort of big shadow behind me while I was yelling, and then it just sort of turned around and left. I lived in that house for years after that, and never had anything else happen. So you know how America's national parks get closed down when the government shuts down? Well, here's my story from when I was the only person inside of Yellowstone National Park at 1 a.m. I'm lucky enough to have 2 properties on opposite sides of the park, which means I use the park as a highway. It's amazing, and you people need to respect the park rules. I get special access to the park during a shutdown, since the road in the park reduces my travel time by about 7 hours. Anyway, The government had that shut down a few years back, and I decided it was time to spend a weekend at my cabin. I got off work at around 10:30 p.m., packed and left for the night. Nobody in the park, pitch black out. No cell service out in the wild with incredible stars. Around midnight, I have my first wildlife encounter, an owl swooping down through my headlights into the dark. Remembering that's an omen for death, I thought to myself, that sucks, creepy. Then after an hour of overthinking the owl, I go down a sloped turn to see the most beautiful fox, just sitting in the middle of my side of the road, staring at me. I stopped my car with the headlights on, and it just watched it sit there. He was not bothered by me, nor I of him. Remind you, middle of the most wild area in America, with nobody around at 1 a.m. After about 20 seconds of staring at each other, he stood up and walked down the road, so I slowly followed. He trots about 50 yards down the road, the curved slope, and steps aside to watch me pass. I shit you not. He looks up as I was passing by, looked me in the eyes, and he winked at me. That all happened over the course of maybe 2 to 2.5 minutes. I did not sleep that night. Well, first of all, I think it's super awesome that you have property that borders the arguably top 2 national parks in the United States, so that's pretty great. And that you have the cut-through is awesome, and I wouldn't mind staying at one of those properties. But anyway, hope you guys are doing well. And, you guys want a Batman update real quick? Batman! What's this? Come here. Oh, you ready? Oh, Batman! It's Batman! Oh, he's trying to eat me. See you guys tomorrow. Bye! I and my 2 best friends were walking around friend 1's neighborhood at 3 in the morning. It was the summer of junior year, so we felt badass being out that late, and we were talking and having a good time. Eventually, as many extended late-night conversations do, we start to talk about the paranormal. Friend 2 talks about how he was on a hunting trip and lost a couple of hours of time. Friend 1 talks about a ghost he has seen, and my turn comes up in the rotation, so I start telling them about my brother's Skinwalker story. He went with a Native American friend to a reservation, camped in the wilderness. Bad idea. Well, as soon as I cap my story off, friend 1 jokes and says, well, you know how you attract a Skinwalker. Talk about it, deny it, fear it. That's what feeds them. Thoroughly heebie-jeebied at this point, we decide to turn back and start the 2-mile trek back home and change the subject to something more lighthearted. At this point, it's 4 in the morning, and neighborhood dogs are stirring and growling. As we walk by with an occasional yelp from an overzealous watchdog, but no human activity whatsoever. Me and my friends are all stopped in the middle of the road mid-sentence, kind of like when there's an awkward pause in a conversation, but we can't figure out why. Then it hits us. Complete silence all around. Not a stick breaking, not a mosquito buzzing, piercing silence. Then we all hear it. Help me, please help me. I couldn't process the words. I didn't process the words. By the time I realized what was going on, I was in a full panic sprint. My 2 friends sprinting right alongside me. We must have run for a mile straight. Friend 1 crying, friend 2 wide-eyed and terrified. We all slow down, trying to make sense of what happened. The voice. I get shivers thinking about it. It wasn't quite animal, not quite human, raspy like a lung patient, but piercing. What I can tell you is that voice tapped something primal inside us. The decision to run wasn't made by me, but by evolution. I'm an EMT. I'm used to adrenaline, but this was sheer animal prey panic. We all pause for a minute to catch our breaths, and we start trying to reason and laugh it off. I'm a big boy. Friend 2 is a linebacker, and friend 3 was in the Marines ROTC, so we weren't the group to be scared easily. We mused to ourselves. Probably an old drunk or dog running again. Whatever it was, it caught up to us and knew the turns we took. Those same words, help me, please help me, made us sprint the rest of the way to his house, all of probably 5 minutes, stopping only to survey what makes this so in my mind. One intersection, cat-a-corner from friend 1's house. Parked in the middle of the intersection is a black Chevy truck, lights on, interior light on, engine running, all 4 doors open, and no one is in sight. We looked around, called out for a brief time, then went into friend one's house. His dog, a Rottweiler, sat at his front door growling the rest of the night until the sun came up, while we huddled back to back to break back in his room. In the morning, the truck was gone, and that's why, until now, damn it, I haven't talked about walkers since. I'm a scout chief, and 3 years ago we were out with our cubs for the summer camp in a beautiful old house in the Apennine, Italy. The house was deep in the woods, and there was a little farm in front of it with a lot of animals, horses, pigs, sheep, and whatnot. We also spot a fox and a deer in the nearby forest while hiking. Needless to say, the city kids were going nuts with all the farm and wild animals. Along with us for the camp came a man, Bruno, who's the founder of the Scouts group. He's 75 plus and still rocking it. He's a sort of mystical figure with a number of legends surrounding him, all of which involve him having connections with the supernatural, like seeing our patron saint, Saint Romaldo, hearing voices in the churches at night who he says belong to Mary, being able to curse people, and all around spooky Catholic mystical stuff. An amazing guy, don't get me wrong, but he likes to tell these stories to kids and other chiefs, scaring everyone. One night, after sending the kids to bed, I and another chief, Nicola, were sitting outside the house to smoke a cigarette after a long day. It was a quiet and clear night, with the usual forest at night sounds accompanying it, wind, some cicadas, and the rustling of small animals. All of a sudden, at about 03:30, all of the animals around us start going insane, making a lot of noise. We're talking all of them, farm animals screaming their lungs out, cicadas and insects being as loud as they can, and even the farm dogs howling. This goes on for about 10 to 20 seconds, even prompting some other chiefs who were about to go to bed to bolt downstairs to see what was going on, until as suddenly as the shouting started, all of the animals shut up, and the night went dead silent. The thing that scared me the most was how even the dumb insects were perfectly synchronized with the farm and forest folk animals. The first thing we think about is that an earthquake is coming. This was a couple years after the disastrous quake events in Toscana and Emilia, so we were pretty sensible to the topic. So we stay on high alert, equip ourselves, and be prepared to wake the kids up should the noise start once again. Luckily, the kids' rooms were directly on the exit, so we decided it wasn't necessary to preemptively wake them up, as most of them were already awake because of the animals. So we wait on edge. A full hour and then 2 hours pass, and no noise nor quake happens. It must have been something else to scare the animals. We conclude, and so we finally go to bed. Now, Nicola and I slept in the same room with Bruno, who had gone to bed at the same time as the kids. We enter the room to find Bruno sleep-talking in his bed and being really agitated, moving left and right. He said mostly inconsequential stuff and noises, but there were some no's and grunts and such, like he was having one of those nightmares in which you're fighting someone or are running away or similar. Tired as I was, it didn't stop me from falling asleep as soon as I touched the pillow. The following morning, we go downstairs to have breakfast before waking up the kids. We're all there talking about how scary the forest looked last night, and yet how beautiful it was in the morning. When Bruno enters the kitchen, Nicola hands him a cup of coffee and cheerily asks him, "Hey, we heard you having a bad dream tonight. You seemed angry at someone. Who were you arguing with?" At which Bruno answers immediately, "Oh, with the devil." Now, knowing Bruno and how he likes to revel in the urban legends and rumors around him, I guarantee that's the standard answer he would give when asked a question like that. But the timing of the whole thing scared the out of me. I went the whole camp without really being able to shrug off the idea that King Satan decided to visit this house in the woods at night to do Satan shit or something, and that the animals were reacting to his presence or something like that, because I assure you, The way the animals went on screaming their lungs out for 20 seconds was just terrifying. One of those unexpected situations where you just cannot react and your whole body freezes to listen carefully. Maybe it wasn't the goddamn devil, but something was definitely giving them and me the scare of their life. It was late at night and I really couldn't sleep. Not that I was trying that much, and I felt a really sharp pain in my chest. I actually thought I was having a heart attack, so I got up to take some painkillers from the bathroom. Once there, and once I had taken them, I realized I actually needed to urinate. I remember it being on the later side of the second hour, and that the window was cracked slightly, which made a soft whistle haunt the room. I went back to the sink to wash my hands when a bright light started to shine outside. I practically threw myself towards the window and saw as this thing illuminated my back garden. I should probably add that there are no lights in my backyard, so this was so surreal. This wasn't a yellow light bulb light either. It was a hard and sharp light, and the garden seemed to scintillate with a bright white light. This was a sharp pain in my chest that was going on this entire time, but started to fade while the light also faded and eventually stopped. I was left dumbfounded for a while. I have no idea what it was, but I'm convinced it's linked to the supernatural. A few years ago, 2012 or 2013 I think, since I was still in high school then, I was at a party with some friends, and as the night went on, maybe at 11 or 12 at night, one of my friends and I went outside to have a cigarette. The second we get outside, there's just this completely awful, foul smell, like just blood, vomit, piss, and death all at once. Now, this was somewhat the middle of nowhere, so we just figured it was a dead animal and went on having that cigarette. Less than a minute later, we hear something moving in the dark, and sure enough, a deer comes hobbling into the very edge of the porch light. So we just mentioned, "Oh, how cute," and the like. But then I noticed something. One of its front legs was messed up in some way, and I'm talking about broken in multiple places and messed up. So my friend and I are slightly put off by this, less than we should have been since drunk, and finish up our cig and get to head inside. However, right as we start to do that, one of the two porch lights goes pop and goes out. So now it's less light outside, and this deer is back into the darkness. So, a bit giddily, we both do this like fake scared squeal at each other and turn around to go inside. And that's when we heard it, that undeniable sound of nails on the concrete patio. We both slowly turn around to see this hunched over, rotten coyote doing this very slow, very unnatural crawl toward us. We go from 0 to 600 paralyzed with fear almost instantly, until another one of our friends playfully pulls us through the open door, telling us to get back to the party. To this day, I've not experienced anything like that, and it's one of the most horrifying things I've ever experienced. I was traveling around in my car. I would just drive a few hours on my days off and see where I would end up. One night, I was tired and ended up near a beach where there were vacation homes within walking distance of the Atlantic. I was getting tired past midnight, so I was looking for a side street to park and sleep till the morning. I was trying to find one not directly in front of occupied homes. I found an empty lot parallel with some homes that looked unoccupied, so I parked across the street. It was a nice night, so I opened my hatch where I had blankets and looked at the stars a bit. I distinctly remember the moon being full. I was going through some things emotionally, both relationally and personally, trying to figure out who I was going to be as an adult. I'd felt peace and calm for the first time in a while. After a while, I had to pee, so I went out and went to find a bush. I'm walking back to my car and I see a fox come from behind the empty lot. I walk towards it slowly and call to it to come over. It looks at me and walks in an arc toward me and stops within arm's distance. I could have pet its head. I thought about it, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate. We look eye to eye, and I feel as if he knows me. His look was unintimidated and gentle. I tell him it's a nice night as I look up at the moon. He seems to understand, but not because of my words. It felt like we were there for a while, but it was probably maybe almost 2 minutes. He scampers away, and I tell him goodbye. He looks back at me from the brush line. I got back in my car and knew he was telling me something. I deciphered it eventually, and now I have a fox tattooed on my right thigh. When I was a child, I spent most of my summers at various camps on the West Coast. One summer I found myself at a camp in the Angeles National Forest, where the living arrangements were a kind of open-air roofed platform cabin with paired beds on either end of a storage area in between. Usually kids were paired or quadded off to fill each one, but there weren't enough, so the counselors asked if anyone minded staying alone. I'd been there before, so I volunteered. Figured I would get extra reading time in without having to worry about a flashlight in someone else's face. One evening I found myself unable to sleep. We were in a heavily wooded area, and the moon was full. Felt very zen watching the moon spin around the sky, tracking the progress against the nearest pine. Then I saw it. A wolf stepped out of its nearby trees and locked eyes with me. It was a silvery gray with darker gray streaks, and it was huge. Not Godzilla huge, but far larger than any golden retriever or coyote that I'd seen. I froze. It froze. Fear and awe and peace played a massive tug-of-war with my insides. I don't honestly know how long we stared at each other. At some point I came out of the Zen lupine hypnosis meditative state and decided that the wolf might need a blanket. Looking back, I have no idea why my thought process would work this way, but hey, I was a kid. So I pulled my extra blanket out of my sleeping bag and spread it out on the empty mattress next to me on the platform. Then I curled up in my sleeping bag, closed my eyes, and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, there were white and gray hairs on the extra blanket. When I told my story to the camp counselors, they didn't believe me at first. Then they tried to convince me that I'd seen a coyote. Apparently our campsite was relatively close to an unused horse corral, and they figured that's what they brought the animals into the camp. But the coyote explanation didn't wash with me. I had seen them before with my own eyes, and that was not what had visited me the previous evening. The alternative theory was that it had been a very large stray dog. That didn't work for me either. The animal I'd see was completely silent, and the noise or muzzle was far more pronounced. My friend and I occasionally went to the gym together whenever I felt like going. It was in the next town over, and I would usually pick him up and drive from his house. I live in an extremely rural area, so in order to get to the town, we would have to travel over a decently sized mountain. It was not the only option to get there, but it was a shortcut off the beaten path. We get there, do the workout, and leave around 10 p.m. As we were driving home, we were talking, not really paying attention to our surroundings. On the way down this steep mountain road, we rounded a fairly sharp turn, and in the middle of our lane, around the bend, was a humongous red-haired beast blocking our lane. It was driving pretty fast, probably around 50 mph or more. So I swerved and slammed on my brakes. We drifted for probably a solid 5 seconds before I regained control of my car. We looked at each other in humor and both asked, "What the was that?" I decided to check out what exactly that beast was, because I have never in my life seen something that large just casually in the middle of a road. I quickly returned to where the beast should have been, but it was gone. It was weird because it had nowhere to go.
One side of the road was the steep mountains going up, and the other side was just a huge drop-off with no visible evidence of said creature. We were freaked out, so we got home as quickly as possible. We don't really have any large wildlife besides deer and black bears near me, so it was strange to see a 7-foot-tall reddish beast. On this same mountain, on the way home from another visit, around the same bend, another weird being happened. Same scenario, except my friend was looking at his phone and didn't see what I did. Another bipedal grayish thing with large appendages was just trying to climb the steep mountainside and just look at the vehicle with large yellow eyes. It didn't look human, and no one lives anywhere near the mountain. It is safe to say I'll never go on that date again.